Section 4.5, Other Methods of Proving that Triangles are Congruent. First theorem for this section is the angle-angle side theorem. If two angles and a non-included side of one triangle are congruent to the corresponding parts of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. Notice that in this particular theorem, this side is not between the angles, and this side is not between the angles. The reason that this works is because these two angles set the direction, and this side sets the distance. And that's why those two can be considered congruent if you use the angle-angle side theorem. The next theorem is the hypotenuse leg theorem. As soon as you hear the word hypotenuse, you should know that that means that you have a right triangle. So in this theorem, if the hypotenuse and a leg of one right triangle are congruent to the corresponding parts of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. You'll notice that this is kind of funny because it goes against what I told you before about using the angle side-side method for proving that the two triangles are congruent. And the reason is because you have right angles, and the right angles offer stability in the two triangles. Notice if I were to take this triangle and bring it here, and knowing what we know about the isosceles triangles, if I have the two hypotenuse sides congruent to each other, that means that this angle and this angle are congruent. I also have this angle and this angle are congruent. So now I have angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side, which means that the two triangles are congruent to each other. Sometimes you're going to have two triangles that are overlapping, and you're going to have to try to prove which ones are congruent to each other. So if I were to look at this first picture and I see that I have this triangle and this triangle, I'm trying to prove that they're congruent. If I were to take them apart and redraw them, sometimes it's easier to see in the picture if they're taken apart which sides are congruent. Notice that this angle right here and this angle right here were congruent because they're both right angles. This short side and this short side were congruent as in given. And now because this hypotenuse and this hypotenuse are actually the same side in the original picture, by hypotenuse leg, you can say that those two triangles will be congruent. Likewise, in this second picture, if I have several triangles that are put together and I take them apart, I have a better idea of being able to prove them based on the information that I'm given. So sometimes it helps to redraw the pictures as two separate triangles whenever they're overlapping. The only thing I need you to do in addition to the note sheet for homework is to list all of the methods that you know, whether postulates or theorems, for proving that two triangles are congruent.